And we're rolling with the show. Welcome to another edition of the Meinke Show podcast. I am your host, your favorite local realtor, Mark Meinke, and I have on the show today, Ernie Okrainec. Ernie, thanks for being on the show, brother.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dirty Patricia.
Yeah, that's right. I got all my gear on. For people listening to the audio version, I'm wearing my Dirty Patricia gear. That is anybody that wants to get a hold of this gear. That is by Joel Turnbull has actually created this. He owns the trademark for it. He's also known as Pipes. And Pipes T-shirts creates these, and you kind of got to be a Patricia to get one. I don't know if he'll sell them to just anybody.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about that. I was going to wear mine, but then people might have thought we were in a biker club, so I figured I'd leave mine at home.
I do have the patch for the back of my motorcycle jacket.
But yeah, I got the hoodie and stuff too, so I think a lot of us have the gear.
It's not a Harley, though. I'm not much of a Harley guy. I need a beard or something like that. I do have the bald head, though. So Ernie is the author of From Soldier to Civvy. It's a journey, and I'm not the same anymore. I'm so happy to have you on the show, Ernie. As you may or may not know, I'm quite active in the veteran community. I help run a peer support group for veterans with PTSD, and have been in therapy myself for a couple of years. And one of the big issues is transition, because it's a problem that doesn't end. I only served 5 years. That was it. And I will never be a Civvy again after only 5 years.
Right. And it depends on where, in your case, that was a hard 5 years.
It was a hard 5 years.
You know, in my time, I did more time than you, but there was no war going on, per se, that we had to go to. And the 90s was a tough time.
Well, earlier on, the Cyprus tour was no joke.
That's true, too, yeah, in the early 70s and a little bit beyond. Yeah, it was, when I was there, it was certainly more common. You could tell it was probably coming to an end. I mean, it was still no fun, but yeah, the early years of Cyprus wasn't that great either.
But you had a kick-ass leave center.
Yeah, you had a kick-ass leave center. Yeah.
There's topless girls on the beach. That's pretty good.
Yeah, well, once you start getting used to Europe, because Europe is certainly a lot more different than North America, that's for sure. It's the common thing there. So you got used to it, but it was nice to see when you first got there, for sure.
So did you spend your entire career in the 2nd Battalion PPCLI?
Yeah, I did. I started off in Winnipeg, but we weren't there very much. We were traveling around quite a bit, a 6-month tour at Cyprus, but probably the big one for me was the 4 years in Germany. And when you were in country, you weren't on the base very much. You were training, whether it be Gagetown or Wainwright. A lot of people went to Suffield. I know I got to go to Kansas, up in Resolute Base. So I could see why it'd be hard to, have a house settled in those days. I don't know if it's so much like that now, but I guess each time is a different time.
4 years in Germany is a bit longer than the average stint, isn't it?
No, I think that back then the tours were around that long. The RCRs, I think that's who we took over from, were there for about the same time. It was really, in a lot of our times, the home that you had, because with combat arms, you were gone quite a bit. I know the Air Force, yes, they were deployed, but a lot of times you'd end up at a base for quite a while, but it wasn't that way in combat arms, for sure.
Looks like we're getting quite the following today. I can't give a shout out to everybody that's on there, but we got quite a few. That's the power of Facebook Live. So tell me, what's the difference about being posted in Germany, where there, I guess it's the Cold War climate, especially in the 80s?
Yeah. Well, we were exactly there for the Cold War, and the climate was more so it was always being ready. And the one thing we do talk a lot about, a lot of people traveled, as I did too, but the one thing we realized is just how much we weren't home. You were always training somewhere in Europe. I know everybody has their own thing that they were into, whether it be skiing or traveling or whatever. I liked the history, and Europe was all about history. And to go to some of the places that you heard about with the war, like Anne Frank's house and some of the Nazi death camps and things like that, it really opened your eyes to just how horrible it was back then. But you're also amazed just how quick Germany built back into a powerful country again after 2 wars.
So long after World War II, why were we still in Germany for so long? What was the point?
It was because of the Russians. Back then, the Cold War was the Russia and the U.S., and NATO was still very much having a lot of troops. The Americans had a lot of troops scattered around Europe, especially in Germany, and we were there to support that.
Germany's a pretty strategic position when it comes to holding back the Red Horde.
Yep, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I've never heard a bad word about anybody that served in Germany. It's always spoken about positively, and I've also find that most of the people that were in Germany, they say that there was a higher level of training, a high level of soldiering that was going on in Germany than when they got back to battalion. Is that accurate at all from your experience?
That's 100% accurate. And as I said, we weren't doing in normal training, say when you're in Canada and you're at one of the big bases, say Wainwright or Gagetown, and you're doing winter training, you're doing your thing like you are. In Germany, the training was very real. You'd be in somebody's town, rolling in with all of our tracks, and you could be in somebody's backyard, digging a trench. They almost always accommodated you. You did a lot of training in the mountains. It was just, I can't even describe how much better it was. You traveled a lot on trains, which you'd spend days at a time on because you were a pretty low priority. But some of the places that you got to train, probably the most famous one or the favorite one was Hammelburg, where you did fighting in a built up area, and the town was made for that. And you got to kick down doors and break out windows and things like that. It was very realistic, and I think we all enjoyed it.
And a lot of guys ended up marrying German women.
I wouldn't say a lot. At first, when we left, including myself, there was a lot of weddings. It was kind of the, okay, you got to make the decision, and we had so many weddings. So there was a lot of new marriages going over there. But certainly, yes, on the way back, there was quite a few people that married German ladies or stayed there or whatever. But I mean, we were in the towns, and they treated us very well and things too. I mean, a romance can happen anywhere in the world, I guess.
And well, it can. Yeah. Hopefully not in the barracks.
Yeah, hopefully. Those stories we don't talk about, right?
No, that only happens in the Navy.
Yeah.
Army guys will always slag on Navy guys.
Yeah, we do. And it's funny, when you were younger, that was so much more competition. You kind of laugh at when you see the guys now. When you're older, it's not so much that.
Yeah. So I know guys that have gone from Army to Air Force, and it was jarring for them, maybe worse than how jarring it is to go to civilian life, because you're still expecting, well, you got a uniform on, so it should still be the military, but it's not.
Yeah, we always used to say it was a civilian job with a uniform, because I mean, we worked a bit with the Air Force side in Germany because we were all in the same base, and you just saw what a different lifestyle that they lived. At work, you're Fred and John and George. In the infantry, it was Sergeant and Warrant. And,
yeah, that's right.
And whatever
There's
it was.
No first names, and there was respect and a legitimate fear of those with rank.
Yeah, if you got called by your first name, you knew you were really in trouble, kind of like with Mom, right?
And now, did you find a similar kind of, because I was in the 3rd Battalion, and 3rd Battalion, as you know, is, I hesitate to use the word special forces, but they're jacked up. I mean, they're just a more intense level. And when we went from the 3rd Battalion to the 1st Battalion, there was a bit of a culture shock there, because everybody was just a normal human being in the 1st Battalion. It's like, oh, okay, you're not a bunch of knuckle dragging animals, and which absolutely was the 3rd Battalion, at least from my perspective. It was tough for me to transition. Although I was much better suited for the 1st Battalion than I was for the 3rd,
right?
As anybody will tell you that knew me back then. But did you find that coming back from Germany, from coming from 4 years of a very high level of readiness and more intense training, when you came back to Winnipeg, did you find it a little bit of, it's like, oh, why is it so slack here? Was it a bit of a culture shock?
Yeah, well, I was lucky enough to come back. I mean, I wanted to stay, but I came back advance party. So for the first 3 months, there was no battalion, and it was slow for us. But what was really happening in the battalion was people coming back from Germany and changing trades, getting out. They didn't need a battalion as big as we had anymore because we were back in Canada. And to say the least, the changeover in the battalion was massive. And not long after we got back is when I got out, and I know the battalion changed a lot then, but and then the tours started for Croatia and Bosnia and that right after. So then I know it got built back up again, but it was way different, that's for sure.
Yeah. What year did you get out?
1988, in December of 88.
Yeah. All right, so a good 8 years anyway.
Yeah.
What do you think the biggest change in the military was? Because I was seeing in the pre-show, people don't know they used to be able to hit you, like in battle school. Did you ever get a pea stick across the shins?
Oh, we were still somewhat the old school where you got abused in basic training, and I mean, I read some of the stuff on Facebook with guys that had different issues than the way you did, but you weren't coddled. What I hear about nowadays, it's certainly a lot different than a master corporal could be charged for chewing out a private, and it certainly wasn't that way in our day. I was in Cornwallis when you seen the bunk bed go out the second floor window because somebody slept under their bed. You remember that torture? That's why you didn't do that. The only problem was everybody suffered for that. Everybody was up at attention in the middle of the night and things. So yeah, I heard I won't say because I'm not in, and I can't say what they're going through, but it sounds like it's more with the times, more group huggy than anything, but maybe it's not. They're still soldiers.
What I've heard from guys that are still in, unbelievable guys that are still in, is like, how are your knees still working after all these years?
Yeah,
but is that the level of training is actually better, but it's just not as intense, or like the challenge isn't there anymore.
Right.
They don't even stay overnight at field phase. It's like, what?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why some of the bases moved to training grounds, right? Because they're up near Wainwright now, 2 of the battalions, and the other one's in Shiloh. You don't have to do the big travel to go and exercise anymore. But it probably would happen a lot more often. You're not in garrison as much.
Yeah, they when I went through, it was no different, except they couldn't hit you anymore. I think they stopped that in 1986, and whatever act was passed, and where they couldn't hit you with a stick. But we were just past that, so I went through in 91. Both my courses started with 91. And in Cornwallis, I was terrified the entire time that I was going to get recourse. So recourse, for those that don't know, is Cornwallis basic training. Everybody goes through it, whether you're a cook, you're in the band, or you're a grunt. Yeah, everybody goes through basic training. Army, Air Force, Navy, doesn't matter. Everybody goes through basic training. And at the time, it was at a beautiful little town, actually, called Cornwallis in the Annapolis Royal, and Nova Scotia. Beautiful place. I'd love to visit it again. But you look out the window and you see somebody with a little wooden wheelbarrow with all their gear in it. We called it the happy cart. The military has the best nicknames for things. There's a lot of good slogans. Yeah. But you see the happy cart rolling and you're like, oh God, I don't want that, because I want this 10 weeks just to be over. Yeah. And I don't want to do it twice.
Well, and it's amazing because back when I was in Cornwallis, it was 11 weeks you had to do. And you're right, then we all got sent to whatever trades we were going. But to be recourse that 2 weeks, it would seem like 2 years, because 11 weeks wasn't an easy 11 weeks, what you were going through. And I didn't get recourse, but that some of the people that did, and yeah, you were just terrified of that.
Well, the funny thing is, because you're with all other trades while you're there, and they go, so what are you doing after basic? Infantry? And they go, oh, yeah. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
And
sorry
did
to hear.
You started to hear that.
Yeah.
You started getting kind of psyched out. It's like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, how bad is this going to be?
Yeah. So did you have a choice of jail or infantry? Is that what that was?
Not for myself, but we had a guy in our course.
I had a buddy that was.
Yeah, and that was,
and he was a good guy.
Yeah, it was the legit thing. Jail or infantry? Pick. Yeah. It's like, oh, damn it. Yeah. I guess I'll go to the infantry.
Yeah. But so much of it too, and I don't know how the recruiters are now. You're going where they want you to go, whatever they have a need for at the time, right? Yeah. Unless you have, if you have some sort of degree that you can be a dentist or a mechanic or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So the why for this book, a book is a big project, and there's a lot to it. What tipped you over to say, I'm going to write from soldier to civvy? It's a journey, and I'm just not the same anymore.
Well, it kind of started, I was at a general manager's meeting in the company that I work with now, and the boss asked everybody's bucket list, and my bucket list was to write a book one day. And then I said, I probably should, but I had no idea what I wanted to write it about. It's not easy just to sit down and write a book. But then the thing I thought of on my Facebook groups are mostly military guys, and seeing that some of the crew that I went through with, a lot of them are starting to retire, and just seeing in general the struggles that people are having trying to be a civilian again, because we certainly weren't that when you're coming out of the infantry. And I said, maybe that's what I'll write a book about. So I wanted to do a book about my story in the Army, and I was only in for 8 years and a bit, but in that 8 years, I sure did a lot and saw a lot of the world, and realized I had a story to tell. And then I wrote about just how hard it was to transition into civilian, to kind of be somewhat successful in what I'm doing, with the hopes that some of them it's gonna help them. I've got quite a few comments back, people that did enjoy the book. One thing I'd encourage veterans of any sort is, you should think about writing one, because every one of us have a story. Our life was an adventure. Doesn't matter what trade you're in. When you sit back and look at all the things that you did, it's worthwhile. And it was great for my family too, because I didn't have kids in those days, and they kind of hear the whispers of the stories and stuff, and now they can kind of see some of the things that I did do when I was younger, and I wasn't so innocent. I couldn't lie to them that I was an angel when I was growing up, because I wasn't.
No, I don't think any of us were.
Right.
One of the reasons that it's impossible to fully ever come back to civilian life. You were 17 when you started.
Yeah.
Now they say that the human brain isn't fully developed until it's 25. That's when it becomes an adult brain. There's still a lot of neuroplasticity, and it can be molded, which is why they started so young. I was 20, so a little bit older, but still it was that 5 years are very, very formative. Yeah. And the ambush drills as an example, they put it into you again and again and again. Ambush left, you dump all your ammo, and you attack with 10 times the ferocity. Ambush right, attack right, you just charge. Yeah. Because it's the only way to survive an ambush, because you're probably going to die in an ambush. So all you can do is max aggression in the same direction of the attack. Yeah. And then close with and destroy the enemy, fight through, crawl in and
fighting chance.
Yeah. And that gets put into us again and again and again. And what happens is our neural pathways get switched so that if you have a problem, kill it. Not great for civilian life.
No, and we were taught so much structure. Everything in our life in the infantry was structure, and then you come out and the structure is not the same. You're kind of built for your structure, who you answer to, and it was a way different way, and people's feelings got a lot more hurt compared to what we were used to, because we hurt our feelings every day. That was just part of the gig, right? If you didn't hurt somebody's feelings that day, you didn't do your job.
Well, if you got really, really chewed out, you'd like high five people. Did you hear that one? Yeah. That was a good one. Like, ooh, yeah,
beat that baby.
Beat that baby. That stings. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he was famous. He was a guy a little bit shorter than me. He was a warrant. He was our CQ in the 3rd Battalion. Last name of Zach. Warrant Zach. And he was famous for the Zach attacks, because when he would unload, they were legendary. And I am so happy that with witnesses, sergeants on either side of me, I got a full-on level 10 Zach attack. So much that the sergeants were cringing. They're like, ooh, it's blood curdling. And after that, everybody's just like slow clap. Yeah. I was like, woo, that was a good one. Buddy.
You're on the list, man.
There's no recovery from that.
No.
But I'm proud of it, because it's like, it was entertaining as shit.
There wasn't many people that, well, there's no way you went through your career without that happening. There's nobody. So you learn to have thick skin, and I guess that was one thing, right? You have to let it roll off a lot more. Otherwise,
did you ever get charged when you're in?
For codes.
What's that?
The codes were used for the radio, for all that transmissions and stuff. And I kind of noted about it in the book, but it was the secret codes, because I was a SIGS NCO, were left in a vehicle, and my driver turned out he didn't lock the vehicle. The MARG security from Germany opened the vehicle, and the codes were all there.
Oh shit!
And that was shit. But the problem was I didn't sign for those codes. It was the captain who did, but they covered his ass and charged me with it.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Yeah, and so I got $1,000 fine, a severe rep, and that hurt.
Well, $1,000 fine is gargantuan back then.
Yeah, it was. But it halts your career for a year. It's enough when you mess up enough, and you get, I mean, you take your medicine for the things that you deserve.
Yeah.
But I didn't like that one bit that I was the one who ended up taking the fall for that. They were just kind of covering for him. But don't kid yourself. I got myself in my own trouble too.
Oh, there's no question.
I talk about in the book.
There's no question. There's a lady by the name of Lorraine Smith McDonald, and I had her on one of my early shows before I had this cool studio. And she's getting her PhD in psychology, and she's doing her doctoral thesis on military PTSD. So I scratched out a list for her of what I believe are the 11 causes of PTSD. The biggest one is betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you experience there, because the system that's supposed to have your back and be just and noble and forthright, and there's an officer covering his ass, and you're taking the heat for the officer.
Right.
And that's bullshit.
Yeah. No, and it shouldn't happen that way. But that's one thing you find out. It happens regular in Civvy world.
Well, shit rolls downhill.
Yeah, shit rolls downhill, and I don't like it. But the one thing it taught me, because I held a grudge about it for a while, and eventually you got to let those things like that go. But I try to protect my staff that I've had a lot more from the higher ups, for sure, because somebody has to.
Do you have any particular stories that come to mind? It's okay if you don't, but when you first made the transition into civilian life, where you had a big clash with anybody, or temper got the best of you?
Yeah, it wasn't so much the temper; it was the way that I talked. And when I got out of the military, I got into the media, so I had to learn not to F-bomb in a hurry, because that was every second word. But not long after my time in the media, I was working in the exhibition association. We were at a staff meeting, and there was male and female staff there, and one of the ladies was talking more brown nosing, and I said, "Oh my God, that's enough, you bag liquor." And that didn't go over too well at the staff meeting. So I realized, I had some work to do on how I talk, but I think that
and especially,
people just don't understand, because that's how we.
What year would that have been?
Early 90s.
So bad enough in the early 90s, but Jesus, could you imagine
nowadays doing
now?
That?
Oh my God, it'd be national news.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't get jacked up, but I got talked to, and she was my friend. I went and talked to her, and then you realize there's some things you can't say, and I think part of that the other challenge was. When you get out, you're not moving with all your buddies. When you got posted with all your buddies.
And what people have to understand is that story, that is not a sexual term to us.
No,
not at all. It's a brown nosing term.
Exactly.
And and brown nosing is also not a sexual term, but it is a common thing, and it's one of our core values.
Yeah.
As a soldier, if somebody is brown nosing, you get called out on that.
Yeah. Or if you get singled out and you get bugged, you get called a bag licker, right?
Yeah.
Just for, look at that bag licker. But it doesn't work that way in the world I was in. So that was my first real oops moment, and hopefully I learned a bit from that.
Was there any stories that you shared in here that were? Is there one in particular that was extra difficult? Because there was a couple of spots where you're like, oh, I don't think I'm going to share that, and you flat out say, I don't think I'm going to share that here, for whatever reason. Was there one of these stories that you're like, oh, that's?
Are you saying the Army side or the Civvy side?
Well, either
side.
Either. Was there anything that was really tough for you to share?
Probably the one where I talked about my one buddy who got addicted to drugs.
Okay.
When we were over in Germany, and I mean, he's not the first one that ever happened to, but back in those days, and I'm assuming it's probably a little different now with the cannabis legislation, but it was almost okay to be an alcoholic, but you better not be any form of a drug addict. And he disappeared in Germany for a while and ended up showing up back at my house, and he was in really rough shape. So once I convinced him that he had to go into base and get arrested because he was AWOL, he went to the hospital, and my ex saw him at the end, and he was just shaking and calling for me, but I was in exercise and never saw him again. And that was still tough. I still think about it all the time. Big thing I wanted to do in the book too is when you're mad about something, I didn't name names. That wasn't what it was going to be about. They know who they are. But if there was the funny story, I named names. You know, Rui Amaral's in there quite a bit, and it just turned out, we happen to be in a lot of the same places. And the civilian side, probably more so because I'm still working in the civilian life, and you're not going to talk too much about the people that will employ you, because certainly not everything is perfect. But the company I work for is pretty good. There wouldn't be a lot of stories there, but I know it certainly has been a struggle for sure.
On the pre-show, I was saying that this is available on Amazon.com. Then I said, "Oh, actually, I don't know that." Where is your book available?
Yeah, well, Amazon is probably the most common book site, and it's on Friesen Press, who's my publisher as well. But I'd say to most people, go to Amazon. But if you just Google my name, all the book sites will come up, and it'll traditionally be there. It's not in bookstores. I think, as you would know, Mark, because you do books, you got to pay that extra to get it into the bookstores, and
it's usually consignment, and that gets
Exactly.
extremely expensive.
Yeah,
you got to foot the bill for the inventory in the beginning.
Yeah, so I just doing what I'm selling is the autograph copies, and I write a few paragraphs in each ones. But you can get your e-versions, which are a lot cheaper, or you can order the hard or soft copy too.
So if somebody wants an autographed edition, how do they get a hold of you, Ernie?
Probably the best bet is through Facebook. Just type in Richard Okrainec and find me through there, or Messenger. On my email, my email address is bluebomber1@live.ca. Being a Manitoba guy, I'm still a Blue Bomber fan. Yeah.
So Okrainec is Okrainec, Oscar, Kilo, Romeo, Alpha, India, November, Echo, Charlie.
That's right. And another thing, and I know what we're talking for a bit here. One thing I wanted to do when I wrote this book is, if it did get some money back, that I'd donate it to Wounded Warriors. So what I committed, whether I got money back or not, I'd donate $250. And what's happened with the book sales that I've done with the autograph books is people sometimes have given a bit extra that I'll put towards Wounded Warriors. So far we've raised over $500, which will be good. I'm going to post after the last quarter comes in for your online sales and do income tax, and then I'll have a bit more of a handle. But whatever the donation is going to be, Wounded Warriors, I think, is a good cause as well. There's so many great causes out there.
I wonder if there's a marketing partnership between you and Pipes, Joel Turnbull, who sells these shirts, the Dirty Patricia gear, maybe to have some sort of package, shirt and a book for some sort of package price, just to get you more exposure.
Yeah, no, and I should talk to Joel about that for sure.
Well, he's sold thousands and thousands of these shirts. It's been a phenomenal success.
Yeah.
The story of the Dirty Patricia, we'll share that with everybody.
Sure.
So, in the 90s, our sister regiment, our rival regiment, the Royal Canadian Regiment, we have a much nastier nickname for them, but
something to do with things that cluck.
Yeah, that's right. But it's all in good fun.
Yeah.
Especially after you've been out for a while, you realize it's just team sports, and we all do the exact same job. There's some cultural differences for sure. They have much shinier boots than we do.
Hey, and we had to put up with MIC, KEY, PPCLI,
which is pretty funny, actually.
Yes.
But of course, we're proud of our regiment. They're proud of theirs, as they should be. The Royals, though, as they're known, the Royal Canadian Regiment, the Royals have the cool cap badge. I love our cap badge. Don't get me wrong. I prefer the Marguerite, I think. But they have a flippin' sheriff's badge, man. That is cool. And they got cool sayings. All we got is VP, stands for Victorious Patricias. But they got never pass a fault and pro patria. That sounds cool. We don't got any of that. We got to come up with those. Maybe the hand sign VP.
Yeah.
VP.
Well, and theirs it could be used as a cowboy belt buckle.
Yeah, that's right.
Cap badge, right.
But so when they're slagging on us, because we're kind of the cowboy regiment, we're rougher, we're definitely more aggressive, and not so concerned with our boots. Whereas when it comes to parade, they win every time. We're pretty damn good at parade, but no, not like a Royal.
Not our favorite thing.
Not our favorite thing. Not like a Royal. But so they'll have us beat there every time. Very, very sharp drill. But to downplay us, they'd say those dirty Patricias. And instead of taking it as an insult, we're like, I kind of like that.
Yeah.
and then Pipes, Joel Turnbull, created the Dirty Patricia gear, and here it is on my head.
Yeah, and
look, this is not official hat; it's an official patch. I sewed it to a hat I already had.
And I asked him what his version of the Dirty Patricia was, and there's. It turns out when you talk to a few people, there's quite a few. But it's a cool slogan. I know I like it, and I like my gear. That's for sure.
I think it would be a great band, don't you think?
Yeah,
you know,
would be.
The Dirty Patricias.
Yeah.
I would love to see a bunch of old Pats get together and start a band.
I'll be the groupie. I'll just follow them around and drink beer. Everybody needs a groupie.
100%.
Yeah.
Ernie, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for taking the time. And I get just from a side wishing all the veterans and everybody serving all the best and good luck. And the big thing that we see on Facebook is you're not alone out there. I know Mark and I probably in our sites have seen so many suicides of guys having a tough time getting through.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to reach out to anybody. Doesn't matter if we don't know each other. We're brother and sisters, and we're here to help too.
100%. And we've all seen them, unfortunately, with all the veterans groups that I'm a part of on Facebook. It seems like every other week there's another suicide, another brother down or sister. And it's not cool. And the biggest
cool.
That's why I'm in 100% open and not embarrassed even slightly about suffering from PTSD. And it wasn't just because of the tour. You don't need a tour to suffer from it. As I was saying before, your experience that you shared, you getting charged, and a serious goddamn charge, where somebody else should have taken the blame, that's betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
And that can haunt you. Luckily, you're able to let it go, as you say, but it can haunt people unknowingly. It's like not realizing that their temper or their trigger, I hate that word, but
mine is trust issues.
Yeah, well, there you go.
With senior management. Yeah, for sure.
And that could very well be strongly because of that one incident that it affects your life 20, 30 years later.
Right. But like I said, I got over it long ago, and a big reason was you're just talking to your buddies. Yeah. You know, when I got together at a beer get together, and then you move on. Life is too short.
You know, that's it. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I help run a peer support group, completely volunteer for veterans of PTSD. And it saves lives. Talking saves lives. Sharing, because you are not alone. Whether you did a combat tour or not, irrelevant. Mm-hmm. What the infantry or the military in general, but especially combat arms, does to your brain is that it flips it to, if you have a problem, kill it. And once that is so hardwired in you, it is a struggle, possible, but a struggle to really throttle that back so that you can function like a normal person. That's why so many of us, Ernie, become truck drivers. Have you noticed that?
Well, because I love to drive and you just clear your head. Right. And I think people just
stay away from people.
Yeah. They just don't realize what you were trained to do, that you just can't turn off that. No. Right. It wasn't, you're in a combat zone. You're not trained to group hug. Yeah. You know, you're trained to survive.
To survive. And if you have a problem, kill it. And that's, that definitely clashes with regular life. It's awfully handy in the military, you know?
Well, but that's the one thing I kind of miss is you could settle a dispute a lot quicker, right? Like men. Yeah. You know, and it's not as hard to do on Civvy Street because you could end up in jail for it, right?
Yeah, no, you can.
We just brushed it off. Okay,
play a game of smash face and shake hands and have a beer after.
Yeah, get over it.
Yeah, get over it and know where the lines are drawn.
Yeah.
And also know what somebody's made out of.
Yeah.
You know.
You know who's at your back.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. I think one of the biggest things people for myself anyway, one of the things I really miss about the infantry in particular is that you could totally hate the guy next to you and love him at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, you can hate him, but the only people you really hated are those that couldn't do their job.
Yeah.
You know, the only there's only one or two that to this day I'm like, oh, I wouldn't cross the road to piss on them if they're on fire.
Yeah.
But it wasn't because I didn't like them. It's because they didn't have my back. I think that's the idea. Didn't have the ability to. I knew that they couldn't keep up, you know, to the fast pack, and I knew that I couldn't count on them in a firefight. Yeah. And those are the guys, and there's only a couple of them.
Yeah. No, and there because they got weeded out.
Yeah.
For the most part. I mean, there's always going to be that, but I know my staff probably get sick because I still use that strong as your weakest man saying, even though there's women now too.
Yeah.
But get it, but it's also not the same as what we did. Right.
No, that's exactly it. Well, thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Monkey Show podcast on Facebook Live. This will be rebroadcast on YouTube, Anchor.fm, Spotify, Stitcher, and everywhere that podcasts can be found. Ernie, brother, thanks so much.
Thanks, brother.
You did a bit of a drive, came in all the way from the Hat, and it's good to talk to another brother as always. And please pick up a copy of From Soldier to Civvy and learn a little bit about what the life is like and the difficulty of transition. If you are a veteran, it's just good for you to have this as a reminder that you are not alone, that the struggle of transition is ubiquitous. We all go through it, just a matter of degree and just how much it affects you. Some people do it more successfully than others. I've been out since 1995. It's been a long time. And here I am 24 years later, and I still have to really watch myself. I still am a bit of a fish out of water. And that's just something that people have to learn to work around. For sure. Ernie, thanks for being on the show.
Appreciate it, brother.
All right, brother.